were born in Michoacan. What pueblo?
I was born in Sahuayo. My mom was born in the village. A village.
All right, Diaz, thank you for meeting with me. Appreciate it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up you're familiar with whetstone?
Mm-hmm.
The way I've been using whetstone is mainly for these data meetings with the math teachers. And so thank you very much because like when Brandy was here, she really, and ¿cómo se llamaba
Vic?
No, the girl from ANET that would come. Do you remember her?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes. I don't remember her name.
Yeah, she would push me all the time with ELA because I'm not an ELA person per se, and so this kind of exercise truly helps me, be a good support for teachers because I get to kind of look at a lesson like I did with this one to prepare and maybe be another good set of eyes for you. So. So, exit ticket 15, module 4, unit 1, an omnivore's dilemma. So, according to the Engage New York, this was the standard, and it was interesting because it gave me this same exact standard for both SL and RI.
Yeah, because that's reading and that's speaking and listening.
Okay, so
that's reading information.
Okay, I noticed that. So that was an interesting thing. So you have the exact same wording for two separate standards. I don't know what the logic is in that.
Because if a person can write things well, doesn't mean they can speak them well.
Oh, got it.
Or if they can understand from a text, doesn't mean they can listen well.
Okay.
So that's why it's different. It's the same wording.
All right. So, thank you for having your computer. But what I wanted to do is really quickly go through like a know and show for this standard. So I went ahead and populated the know and show chart for this. And just I want you to look at it and see if you think I'm missing anything. So for know, I put, in order for kids to show mastery of this in this assignment, or I'm sorry, for this standard, I put that they have to be able to bring experiences or prior knowledge, use academic language, and then really have a good understanding of what a persuasive essay is, and just the term, just knowing this term advocacy. Would you add anything to that? No? Chart? If just looking at this standard.
I think that looks good.
Okay. And then so showing it, basically what they're showing is that in order to show this, I would say that they have to write a persuasive argument using prior knowledge about a topic. They have to write a persuasive argument, and it could be in the same thing. Connecting prior knowledge to the topic, and then writing a persuasive argument using an analysis of learned information. Did you have anything to
Expressing that argument verbally.
Oh.
Because there are students who write really well, but they can't express themselves verbally.
Express themselves verbally or something?
Like, for example, Omar didn't write a script, but he he expressed himself verbally very
Got
well.
it, got it. And that's the second piece that I wanted, yeah, talk to you about. Okay, so expressing verbally. Cool. All right. And then so I looked at this exit ticket because you told me which lesson it was, so I got online, and you can like, verify that this is the right one. So the kids were asked, which meal did you choose at the beginning of the unit? Is this the one?
Yeah, I didn't do that because the assessment was more important to me, and it took a while to complete the assessment.
Okay.
And we've already done these questions several times.
So what prompt did they get for the writing?
The writing was, what food chain would you choose from the food chains that we studied, and provide 2 reasons and evidence.
Perfect. So
So this was like a quick exit ticket that they were supposed to, after hearing the fishbowl discussion,
right.
if they changed their mind.
Okay. But it's kind of the same thing because which one did you choose, and then you have to have 2 reasons why.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So
it's kind of
basically, I'm saying I didn't get a paper copy of
right.
an exit ticket. I got the script,
Mm-hmm.
and I got what they said in the discussion.
Cool. And so for this, it seemed to me the big thing on the show was that what they had to do was use kind of like their prior experience or their experience from eating at home or how their family chooses food with information from whatever text, and kind of like creatively combine those. It was one of the learning targets. That was the wording that they used. Justifying their choice creatively, connecting prior experiences with what they learned.
Yeah.
I think that was my big show. So if I want to see an exemplar, that would be it. And so I chose Zaides as an exemplar.
She's an EL, by the way.
And I know that. And
I'm
so
saying that for the camera.
yeah. Oh yes, she's a EL. I know I was gonna say that. When I read through this.
So she, for example,
Go ahead. I was gonna ask you what
expresses
tell me about
herself in writing very well.
Mm-hmm.
She did not do very well in the fishbowl discussion.
That makes sense because she's
she,
EL.
yeah, so she's learning how to write really well. But speaking is still scary for her, and she struggles a lot.
Okay, so what about this piece in terms of writing? And I agree with you, but
so basically, I'm saying she didn't meet the speaking and listening standard, but she met the writing standard, the reading.
Right, and to her credit, she's in the ELD program with your father. She even made leaps and bounds in terms of like expressing herself in English. And then when I talk to her like informally at break or at lunch, I'm always encouraging her, and I'm sure everybody else is too, to always try to speak in English. And so this just proves to me that she is like super motivated in learning how to express. At the same time though, she took what I would consider to be an exemplar thing here and an exemplar piece of the show and say, I'm going to use her knowledge. My family prefers to know where our food comes from and how it's produced. And then she directly connected it. On page 214, Paulin says, getting their food. So she I think this is very creative. She took something that her family does as a hook and then backed it up with what she was reading. And I think she did that a few times.
This is part of the model that I showed them.
Oh, that's great.
So I gave them like sentence ratings, and then I told them you need to make sure that you tell me where you got the evidence from.
Cool.
So she actually followed the instructions.
Oh, perfect. So that was my next question. What guidance did you give the kids in allowing her to be motivated to produce this?
I gave them the model. I helped them write a model script.
Awesome. All right. So let's look through the student work really fast, and I'm sure you already kind of did that. Is there anything that you can think about as far as like a gap um, between kids that didn't, other than, oh, well, they just didn't do it. Maybe something like this one, like what is the gap between, because what I counted was, I'm sorry.
Well, there's a gap, the gap is different for different kids. For her,
Got it.
it's effort. Because this girl is perfectly capable of writing a good script. For her, it's academics. She's not very high academically, but she put a lot of effort in. For this guy, I mean, he did a good job both expressing himself and in his writing. It's just messy. Like,
Yeah.
this guy, academics. He put a lot of effort into this. Her, she put a lot of effort into this, so I think she did well.
These are the reasons for.
Yeah, so just different kids, different things. She's perfectly fine. You know, he's an exemplar as well. And then the kids who didn't do it would be largely effort and then possibly some academic issues. Like, she put a lot of effort, but she's in Yale, and so
Right.
she wrote it in Spanish. And then she still tried to speak in the fishbowl discussion, and she spoke in Spanish.
Okay.
So she didn't meet the standard, but she put the effort in. So I'm encouraging that, because effort leads to success eventually. And I encourage that.
So I was looking at the same thing, and when I noticed that if I had to pick something that would be high leverage for like making sure that that kids were supported, like you're saying academics, so making sure that kids were supported, and I know you did this, you showed a model, but what do you think about if I were to choose something as a reteach or something that you're going to do, moving forward, would you think that modeling or guided discourse lesson would be more appropriate? I tell you what,
I would probably still model it. With 36 or 37 kids in the classroom, it's hard to do guided discourse without, I don't know, it's just hard.
Well, what I did is I took a look at all of these, and I had the same reaction that you had. Like, it's different for different kids, but everybody was like almost there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't as creative as Zaidi was, and so maybe a guided discourse lesson to me means that I take, I start with a student work or an exemplar, and then I would show show the examples of the person being creative, maybe not like by name. Like take Zaidi's, what is it? And say, look, this is a student exemplar, students, and I'm going to show you where the student really did a good job with this. And you kind of did that already, you said. And so, in order to motivate students, I want to think about how can we help encourage the kids so that they react to that model the same way that she did?
Well, some students are asking for another fishbowl discussion, and I don't want to have another one on the same topic because that's going to get really boring. I'm already bored with it.
Yeah.
So I told them that we just need to have enough information to have another fishbowl discussion. So I want to have another one, but that's going to take some time before I reteach.
Right.
So in that case, then I would take an exemplar and show them, because I didn't have an exemplar for this. I didn't teach it last year.
Gotcha.
Or the kids, we didn't get to it.
And I don't know, does Engage New York have like the student exemplars in there?
I mean, they have a model script that I use.
Okay. Because what I wanted to do is
And
like, when I read through the lesson and the unit, I was like, I want to write one. But that's, I mean, that would be but like you said, if you have student examples, if this is a show that keeps coming up, I think it would be great to hold some of these student exemplars and say, this is where this student does a really good job. And even as a reteach, okay, now you get a chance, not as a reteach, like after the fishbowl, but maybe as a preparation for the fishbowl discussion, saying, okay, this is what you produced. Take a look at yours. Here's an exemplar. Make yours really good now for your fishbowl. You know, so give them like another at bat or whatever. So what I did here is I took from the reteach structure that we used during relay, I put that this would be a guided discourse, and that just to start with student work, and then display the exemplar student response, and help kids or guide kids towards that to improve their kind of like draft and to make a final copy. And so, what would you think something like that would look like in the classroom?
Depends on what I'm teaching. I think the kids are interested in reading To Kill a Mockingbird next, or at least a couple expressed that interest. So then we would be talking about race relations, and I'd be interested in that.
Cool.
But again, that's a whole lot of gathering information and taking notes and keeping track of where to find that information in the script.
Do you think it would be a good idea to have the final, I don't know, this was true in my science classes when I was teaching, I would have like the final thing, whatever that was, like my exemplar from the year before, like you're saying, or even if I would make it and say, this is what we're shooting for, but we have to do X, Y, and Z before we get there. I don't know if that would be something that you would want to do, or if that would even be appropriate. I know
I do that all the time. Like
okay.
With the next unit, they're gathering information for a presentation that they have to do, and it's still omnivore's dilemma. So I told them, this is your research question for the mid-unit assessment. You will be answering this research question and creating a presentation, and your performance task is to write an essay. So how many of the kids are going to remember that? I don't know, but it's in their packet. So I do that all the time. It's not that I don't do it, it's just that they don't always hear me or remember.
Yeah.
So with the fishbowl, they might, I think it would be fun to do it on race relations, because the kids respect me enough to keep it civil. So they might remember that a little bit more if I tell them, okay, at this point we're going to be having a fishbowl discussion about everything else. So they might actually remember that and keep that in mind as we're learning.
Yeah. And so when you get to that point, if you choose to do that, I would love to like even support you and help you in coming back to this discussion, so we can get like more of the kids to have like an exemplar when they go into the discussion.
They might be more incentivized too, because I think some kids felt left out.
All right. Okay, so I think that's it. I don't want to take any more of your time, but just to kind of wrap up, so what we decided was that moving forward, that we would, if you do when you do a fishbowl activity like this, or an assessment, like I call it a culminating task. A culminating task like this, that in order to motivate students, that you would take an exemplar and really demonstrate how the student met the goal for that show in the know and show chart for the exemplar, and then encourage students to take their draft, whatever they did, and make theirs kind of like pristine, make it better. The kids always really want to make stuff better. That's what I have noticed. They want their, the kids that want their stuff perfect, want it perfect. Ureli comes to mind, Yaretsi comes to mind. Even Michael. Michael wants all of his thoughts the way he wants them, but he really does strive for perfection. So, cool. Thanks a lot for meeting with me. Appreciate it. All right. We'll be in touch.